Our show wouldn't exist without you listening. But if you want more information on how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or just to stay in touch, go to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there. What we do here on Flipping the Lid by now, and I love it when we have guests that are not only willing, but are able to come in and actually flip the lids within their lives, their stories, and really get real with us. Today, we've got an incredible guest who I've been with twice on 2 of my other live shows. And every time I talk with her, the conversation goes deeper. It's really amazing to watch how she moves through the world because she's known as the Biz Doctor. In fact, that's the name of her podcast as well. But what does she do? She specializes in helping 7-figure entrepreneurs get unstuck, really understand the source or sources of what's keeping them there and getting them moving to grow their lives. A lot of overlap, a lot of alignment with the way that we operate and move through the world. And so whenever I see a counterpart that I know can not only go deep herself, but has the ability to help others like you, I want to make sure that they're on their show. So Lauren, it's a pleasure to have you here today, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this for a while, so can't wait to dive in.
Well, that's awesome, my friend. You know, there's only one question that I ask every single guest, and all of our guests know who this is. And you asked me before the show, you're like, is there anything I need to prepare for? Well, this isn't going to be a complicated answer for you, so I don't think it's going to be hard. But
okay,
who are you in your words?
Ooh, in my words, I would say I'm a business rebel, ultimate problem solver, lover of the silence of fresh snow and going on adventures and experiencing other cultures, and so wildly passionate about entrepreneurs' mental health and getting business owners out from underneath their business so they can make a bigger impact and not get stuck in all the management minutia that burns us all out when we're really chief everything officers instead of true CEOs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that is such a true statement. So many entrepreneurs, so many CEOs end up giving themselves a job, owning every single role, not knowing how to move through their businesses. And then 95% of the time, they're stuck for reasons that aren't what's right in front of them. Mm-hmm. You and I both know this. It's always the historical things. You said something really beautiful in that answer that I want to pause on for just a second. You said, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like the silence of fresh snow or the quiet after fresh snow.
Yeah.
Take me there. Like, what were the words that you used? And then what is it about that experience that is a part of who you are?
So I think I said the silence that fresh snow brings. And so I live in Austin, Texas, but I'm a Colorado girl. And I just remember, like, there's so much joy that comes to me when I think about fresh snow days. Like, I mean, I might be aging myself, but back in the day, if we had a snow day, you had to look on the bottom of the TV and be like, are we canceled? Are we delayed? And then you could just have a lot of fun. But as an adult, in addition to the joy that I had as a little kid with fresh snow, and I still actually do snow angels as an adult.
Do you?
I do. I love playing in the snow. But there's something about when it snows, it's like everything slows down, and then it's just everything's heightened. You can hear the crunching of the snow under your feet. You want to like cozy up with the people that you love and drink hot cocoa or something like that. And it's like a moment of reverence of like everything that might not be what you want it to be in that moment is suddenly brand new and just magical, and like anything could happen.
I love how you described that, by the way. And truly, I can't tell you that I've ever had anybody not only identify that as a part of who they are, but have described the silence that fresh snow brings, which is such a beautiful thing. And all the way you described that. And so what I'm going to ask you is what is it about that entire experience that you believe relates to how you move through the world? And with all of what lacks in that space, right? Why do you believe that the freshness is something that many could benefit from? And actually, why are we not living that way with every moment of our lives?
Yeah. So there's so many layers.
I know there are. I asked like 3 questions too.
I know you did. It was like a Russian doll with like the whole, yes.
We're just getting deeper and deeper.
Exactly.
Here we go.
Here we go. So I think that there's a couple of things. One, as a business owner, when I was first starting my business, I was all in the doing, the busyness, the just trying to make it work and make my clients happy. And that I almost burned down my business because I got so burned out. And I remember one day when I was just having a particularly challenging day and I was not having any fun. I was stressed out. The team was stressed out. And I had one of my good friends go, Lauren, it's raining. And I know you love jumping in mud puddles. I'm really a little kid on the inside. I need you to go jump in a mud puddle.
By the way, I think we all are.
Right. We should be, right?
Yeah.
We should be. And so I'm like, this is ridiculous, but you're right. I've got to go move the energy because like what's happening right now is diminishing returns. It's not doing anything. So I put on my bright red hunter boots and my raincoat and I went and I played in the rain and I closed an $11,000 client that unexpectedly an hour later.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. And so I say all of that because there's so much magic when we get out of our offices and we stop looking at screens. And I think I'm considered an elder millennial because I grew up analog, but came of age digitally. And I really miss that connection. And so when it snows or when it rains, I just feel like it regrounds us into something bigger than ourselves. And it reminds us of the magic of the little moments because the little moments are the moments that make the big moments. And so I will say living in Austin, one of the things I miss the most is the snow, which is why I play in the rain now. Because in Colorado, we have cold rain. And that was not fun. But in Texas, we have warm rain. So that is fun. So I've switched. But if you can find something that can get you out of the mental hamster wheel that sometimes we get on when we're trying to solve a problem or trying to shift our businesses or ourselves, then it makes you see things that you might not have been able to see had you still been staring so closely to it.
I mean, you just dropped a bunch of golden wisdom nuggets throughout that entire answer. And so we're going to unpack some pieces of that. First and foremost, I love that you surrendered in that moment when you were low frequency, low energy, lacking focus, not feeling good, right? The world, I would argue, has a predominant narrative that tells people to just push through that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we know, and I know from firsthand experience that when you push through, you're pushing other stuff down and you're causing greater and greater problems. Right. Yep. But it's really difficult sometimes, especially depending on where you're at in business, if you're not feeling invigorated, to be like, oh, well, I can just make a few more calls today. I can do a little bit more outreach today. I can service more clients today. Right. Mm-hmm. And then to have a friend reflect to you, hey, just go jump in some puddles.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've told stories about this many, many times. The same thing has happened in our life, right? Our business in situations where it's like, I'm waiting for a key relationship or a new opportunity to get back to me or, right? And that waiting game sometimes is the hardest. And so it's like, well, do I do another outreach? Right? Or if I get low frequency and I'm just not able to focus, I'll shut everything down. I'll go jump with my kids on our trampoline. We'll go walk around the block. We'll like reconnect with how we're, who we are and how we're doing it. So I'm curious, when in your life did you learn to pause and surrender versus fight and push through?
It was actually a pretty recent, maybe a year and a half ago, was when I really committed to it. But it was 2019, actually, when I got slapped in the face with it. So we need that, by the way. Right. Like the 2x4 to my forehead. Yeah. Let me paint the picture. Record-breaking months, very happy clients, like global clients, everything on the outside looks perfect. On the inside, it is a dumpster fire. I'm burning the candle at both ends. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life because I'm stretched so thin and things are starting to fall through the cracks. The clients are starting to notice and I'm a mess because I don't like letting people down. And I remember it was a Friday afternoon. And I just started crying at my desk because the pressure had just like gotten to the point where I knew I was burned out. And I was just at that moment, I was like, okay, how can I extricate myself, still deliver on my clients, burn the whole thing down, go back and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't keep doing this. And I just said, okay, that's it. And I closed my computer. I kept crying, had a good cry, went to sleep, slept for, I don't even know. Basically the next day, didn't talk to a single human being. woke up on Sunday and felt like a completely different person. And that was the moment that I realized that if I don't surrender, if I don't take those pauses and recharges and moments to just be, then I'm not the best version of myself. I'm certainly not the best business advisor, consultant, fractional CEO for my clients. I'm not a good friend, like all the things.
Yeah.
And so that was the first moment where I said, I have to do something different. I can't be in this hustle thing. And then about a year and a half ago, I went through an emotional intelligence leadership program where I really uncovered that a lot of my hustle was this needing to prove my worth and my value.
Okay.
And so that was a really interesting journey down imposter syndrome, which I think is something that I have not rectified. Who knows? I don't think it'll ever go away. Actually, as a sidebar, had somebody tell me, you shouldn't have imposter syndrome because you know that you are an expert, but there are things that you don't know, and there are people that are more qualified than you. The people who should have imposter syndrome are the people who are making shit up and are actually the imposters, but they're so confident.
Imposters don't have imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
They don't.
So I go through this program, and then I'm having this inner struggle between my masculine and feminine, the masculine structure of business, and I'm in operations. Yeah. So I'm very heady there and wanting to also be in flow and magnetic and all of that. And so I said last year, because I don't do New Year's resolutions, I do words. So last year I said, what is the word that is going to get me closer to my vision and serve me most? And the word I picked was surrender. And so
what year was this?
This was this
2020?
year.
This year. Got it.
This is the year. Yeah. And so every single thing that I'm doing is a reminder of surrendering. And I can tell you that it has been so rewarding, also very terrifying for a recovering perfectionist and control freak to surrender. But I mean, I have an amazing story if you want me to share about surrender and how it's been really fun.
I would love to hear the story. What I want to reflect back from my own experience, because I think it's actually really cool. So 2019 and 2020, I don't do New Year's resolutions either. I don't believe in them. I believe in new day or new moment resolutions if we're going to do that, right? But I do believe in, right, like themes for the year, like keywords for the year, right? Like what are kind of my guiding focuses for this time frame? And in 2019 and 2020, the words were trust and surrender.
Oh, yeah.
And then in 2021, it expanded to trust, surrender, breathe. And those are the only 3 words that I've got tattooed on my left arm. And it's a constant reminder. So there's a big shift. I resonate deeply with so much of your story already. I mean, I fought for most of my life, and it wasn't until I learned to surrender that I really got joy, freedom, and fulfillment in life holistically. I'd love to hear your story about surrender.
Yes. So again, premise, recovering perfectionist, loves to control, also loves to plan. Like I've got a spreadsheet for Thanksgiving, just in case you're curious.
And it's probably color-coded.
Don't give me ideas like that. And see, now I'm thinking about my spreadsheet and how to optimize it. So this year I decided I was going to go on what I have now coined, which will be an annual thing, a fall friend tour, because we joke in Texas, when fall happens, nothing changes. It's like summer and second summer, and the only reason
I'm in Arizona.
Okay,
we're the
you
same.
Get it.
Yeah,
you get it. Like the only reason our trees change colors is because they're dehydrated. So I was like, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go see my friends. I'm gonna go up the East Coast. I've always wanted to do apple picking and do those things. And so I knew that the first leg of my trip was planned. I was going to Nashville, staying with a friend. We were going to this great festival. That was really, and then the end was planned, New Hampshire. But New York was a little bit wily. And I just kept getting this like nagging feeling of don't plan New York, which is so unnerving for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to plan New York.
So you can't go on vacation and just have like 7 days open. You can't do that?
Oh, no. I could. If I knew where we were staying and we had flights, that'd be totally fine. But I didn't even have a hotel, right? I had my flights I had my rental
gotcha.
car, but I
Okay.
didn't have a hotel.
I was trying to figure out how extreme this was because
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I mean,
gotcha.
maybe that'll be 2024's challenge.
Okay.
And so I haven't planned my hotel, and I text my friend. So I'm supposed to arrive on Monday. I text my friend Saturday and I'm like, hey, so excited to go apple picking with you. And she goes, oh my God, this didn't get on my calendar. I have a VIP client. Like, I can't see you. Like, I can see you for like an hour and a half on Tuesday. So I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't book my hotel, because I would have been in a totally different part of the city with a friend that can't meet me. So then I text my other friend and I'm like, hey, I know you're from New York. Where should I stay? And she goes, wait a minute, you're going to be in New York? I'm going to be in New York. I'm literally flying there from San Diego right now. Why don't you stay in the hotel we're staying at? So I'm like, universe, this is so interesting. Okay, what else you got? So, and she's like, and we're showing our movie at the Historical Society. You should come. And so all of a sudden these things start aligning. And so I was planning on going apple picking in New York. And then it just rained both days, right? So that would have been terrible apple picking. So then I text my friend in New Hampshire and I'm like, hey, you want to go apple picking? And she's like, I was literally just talking to Dan about this 10 minutes ago, and we would love to go. So we ended up, after New York, I drove up to Boston, saw my friends, then had a cute little overnight in a northern Massachusetts town, and then ended in New Hampshire. And the apple picking, I didn't plan any of it, but if I could plan it, it would have been just like this, because we went to this place. He had 50 different apple trees. Most orchards have like 2. He gave us a tour. Like, my friend's husband knows the owner, so he gave us a tour. I learned all about apples, apple cider biscuits, pumpkins, all the things. No rain, beautiful, perfect weather. And I just, it's going in my evidence locker of how magical can things be if we let them be better than we might want them or think that they could be.
I always believe that the timing is always perfect. The situations and everything are always happening if we actually allow it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. I mean, we teach this concept. The second you protect yourself, you disconnect yourself. Right. Perfectionism and control are a form of self-protection. Right? Like, they're there to design to keep us safe or make us feel safe or give us the perception of safety. Right.
Exactly.
And so I genuinely do believe that most of the time when people aren't getting what they want, they don't feel like they can be who they want to be, they aren't attracting and receiving all the blessings that are abundantly available to everyone. Right. It's because there's some level of self-protection. Right. That's either conscious or unconscious. And so I love that. And even the way you describe it, because so often, I mean, this happens all the time with my wife and I. It's like, I used to stress when we would go somewhere about like, am I going to be able to find parking? Right. Like something as simple as that. Right. And a few years ago, I just surrendered to it. And I realized that I just happen to always seem to get lucky with parking. So why do I stress? Like, why do I focus on it? Why do I do? And the second I surrendered, we get like front row right next to handicap spots, like 99% of the time. And it's like, there's no other spots in the whole lot. And I just happen to turn on the right street, right? Like surrender. And we have these blessings that exist in front of us. And obviously I gave a really crazy example compared to even your general experience, but this happens in the most minute and in the grandest of ways. Before we go on to deeper questions though, what are the top 2 things you learned about apples?
Oh, there's 7,500 types of apples.
7,500 types of apples.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize there were 7,500 species of apples. That's insane.
Isn't that insane? And oh man, now I kind of think this fact might be wrong, but I think they originated in China. Like, they're not from America. And there's a whole, like, they can only grow in certain areas where the nights are cold, so that like Texas can't have apples. But I know when he told me that, I was blown away.
7,500 types of apples. That is mind-blowing. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Take us back to your childhood. You said you grew up in Colorado. You obviously have fond memories, not only with friends, family, but the weather, the climate, just the entire culture of Colorado. It's obvious when you talk about it. You light up, right? It's home.
Yeah.
So take us back to your early life. You're a perfectionist, right? You have self-proclaimed levels of control that get integrated in there, right? You also said it's like, man, I've had imposter syndrome kick in, and guess what? I'm one of those people too that learn to receive love, validation, and connection through performance, right? Mm-hmm. So give us a little bit of a feel for what did your upbringing look like, and when did you start to become aware of some of the patterns that were either existing currently or starting to develop as a result of your environments and just conditioning?
So I grew up very blessed from a materialistic sense, but very poor in the things that I believe truly matter looking back. So my parents fought like cats and dogs. My dad was a great provider, but he was very rarely ever there because our family business kept him on the road a lot.
So provider financially primarily is what it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And there was just so much dysfunction between my parents and my grandparents. I mean, my grandparents were married for 60 years, and I remember looking at my grandmother to answer I'll dive deeper. But when I started waking up that this kind of dysfunction was not normal and not healthy, I just was like, why did you stay? And so, growing up, I have more memories of climbing out my bedroom window and hiding in the woods with the dogs when my parents were fighting than I do of like really happy times. So I grew up pretty fast. I also was an only child. So I had like the massive pressure of being an only child. And also I was the only grandchild on both sides. Hyper-focused, right?
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of things to not create conflict. So I would try to be the good little girl. I grew up in a family where girls were seen and not heard. And it was really interesting because when you're in it, like it just seems normal. But it was when I went to college and I really started seeing, being exposed more frequently to other families, other dynamics, that I just realized like this is not good. And I felt a lot of shame around it because from the outside we looked like the perfect family, but if you knew the inside, it was a hot mess. And I don't talk about it a lot because I don't want to paint my parents in a bad way because they were doing the best they could. Yep. But I'm not one to say that I was a victim to it. It definitely shaped a lot of the habits that I had. And who is it? Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Yeah. So I feel like once I started waking up, I've spent the past, 15 years unlearning a lot of things that they did that I subconsciously and maybe even consciously digested as thoughts or habits or just stories about who I was and how the world was. And it's been really interesting because now that I have this self-reflection or self-disclosure, I'll be like, oh my God, that was like direct words that I've heard my dad say. And I'm like, okay, that's not me. Let's kind of, and so it's just been this like constant shedding of all of these stories and things that really aren't serving me. And then I went in and did basically a surgery about 1.5 years ago and in this emotional intelligence leadership program that really got to a lot of the root of where all of this came from. Yeah. And I read a really great book called How to Be an Adult, I think is actually, I don't know.
I haven't heard of that book. It just made me laugh because I love the title.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it, by David. I don't know if it's right next to me on my bookshelf, but the premise is really simple of when you can objectively and lovingly look at your parents as human beings who have their own trauma, their own stuff, their own stories, and and recognize that you're never going to get what you want from them because they're just not capable.
Yep.
It was very freeing for me because I spent a lot of my adult life trying to make them proud or make them see my value or, you know, I don't know, dull my light so I didn't upset people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I think, when I look back, stunted a lot of my success and growth because I was so afraid to make waves because I'd just been crushed by so many tsunamis when I was little.
I want to say thank you for your vulnerability, for your transparency, and how many levels you went to through the course of that answer. It's obvious the work that you've done, and again, I resonate deeply with many parts of your story. It's really cool to hear you talk about what, you know, the 15-year journey that you've been on, and frankly, that you're still on it, right? I've been on mine for 12 to 15 years, and I'm still on it, right? There is no final destination, and to your point, it's like these shedding of layers. I mean, some of them are deep.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate the specificity of, you almost did a proverbial surgery in this emotional intelligence class. I that resonates deeply with me because I don't know if you know this. You're called the Biz Doctor, but I've been given a nickname that I'm a heart surgeon without a blade. And it's for that exact sole purpose, because that's what I help so many people do, is get to the source or sources of the stuff that continues to show up in their life that they may have no knowledge of. And it is critically important because until you get to the source or sources, you can't start to actually fully break the patterns.
Yep.
And so I love how you described that. Give us a little bit of insight into what that surgery and the process of that surgery looked like for you to find the source, and what have you done with it since?
It's going to sound like I'm in a cult because I can't tell you the specifics of the program. But...
That's fine. I just want to know your process.
Yes.
You know, again, regardless of what you were guided through, I just want to understand from your perspective.
So from my perspective, there were a couple things at play. So about, I would say maybe 6 years ago, I started toying with really looking at, where was I numbing? Was it with alcohol? Was it with relationships? Was it with food? Was it with TV?
Yep.
And about 4 years ago, I actually decided to go completely sober. One, turns out when you're in your late 30s, hangovers are not awesome. But two, I just wasn't feeling my best. But more important than that, I just wanted to feel all the things, because I felt like if I was numbing the bad, that wasn't meant I was also numbing the good. And so my process through that program was really confronting the things that I was too afraid to look at. Like, how was I actually showing up? How were people perceiving and experiencing me? Where was I letting my anger and resentment over, you know, any number of things run the show? Where was my little kid hijacking and like throwing a temper tantrum? And so for me, it was really allowing my perfectionistic self to get messy and look messy. Because I'll tell you, so it's three levels, but I remember between level 1 and level 2, I've never been more terrified. And it wasn't like we were, you know, I don't know, going to some work camp or being beaten or anything. Like, it wasn't like that at all. It was just, I knew that this was going to require me dying. Like, and it wasn't me, but it was my ego. It was my previous version of myself. And I was so afraid of who that person on the other side was going to be, because I didn't know her, or I couldn't remember her because I had been, you know, protecting for so long. And I was absolutely convinced that I was going to actually die. And so for me to be courageous enough to say, I'm going to meet you on the other side, and it might not look pretty. And if I because the other part of the fear was, if I like, I'd been holding all of this stuff in for so long.
Oh, yeah.
So like, if I crack open and I get vulnerable and I show you all the messy parts, what if I can't put Pandora back in her box? Like, what if all of a sudden it's just like It's worse than it is right now. And so for me, it was a lot of faith. It was a lot of support within the community that we're part of in this program. And it was learning how to trust myself in a way that I'd never trusted myself before. Because I always looked for someone else to tell me what to do or tell me how to act, how to be, or say, you got this. And so it was like a whole nother level of, no, I got me.
Yeah. And once Pandora's out of the box, you don't want to put it back, to be honest.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
You just don't know. No, it was a beautiful answer to my question. I mean, truly. I love listening to you talk because there's so much overlap and so much resonance, even in the language that you use and how you describe situations. It's so accessible, right? And this is something that every single person deals with. The entrepreneurs and high-level 7-figure entrepreneurs that you and I are both working with are dealing with these exact same things, but they aren't necessarily normalized in discussion. You know, you talked about, and we've talked about this theme already a lot throughout the course of this conversation, but it said, I started to become aware of all these ways I was protecting myself. How are you still protecting yourself today?
Oh, man. I think the thing that still is there is the fear of truly showing up. Because I could be on more podcasts. I could be on big stages. I could finish the book that I want to write. And it's like that little tiny itty bitty shitty committee that's on my shoulder that's going, who the hell are you to do that? And wondering if the things that I have to say really matter. Like somebody else I'm sure could say that in a different way or a better way, or somebody with more experience. And so that I would say is where I hold myself back, because I'm like, but people are already talking about operations and team and entrepreneur mental health. Like, am I just adding noise? And so it's consistently remembering that it's the perspective, it's the experience that I bring that makes it different and makes it me. And so every day I get a little more courageous. And this doing all of these podcast interviews and guest spots has been really good for me to stretch that muscle, to grow that muscle. And I'm actually reading a book right now, which is I just started it yesterday, but it's called You Are the Mountain. And it's all about self-sabotage. And I'm
I've read that book. It's a good one.
This is a good book.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. I love that. Are you familiar with the two sides of shame?
Is it's the looking good and I can't remember the other one. No, tell me.
So how I describe it in the language that I use, right? It's the two talk tracks to shame are I'm not worthy and I'm not good. Right. And I will tell you that for most of my life, I didn't or couldn't identify with my relationship with shame, because though I had moments here, that was never my predominant narrative. But the other one is when you shut that down, you show up in the arena and you're ready to go to battle. It's, who do you think you are?
Yes.
Right. And so for me, the bigger I lived, everything major I ever did in my life, I started to feel the need to apologize for. And I'd pull the throttle back in my life. And to your point, I would sabotage opportunity that was right in front of me. The other side of it that I will tell you that I fully identify with, because it's been a journey for me as well to stand in and own all of who I am. And it's only been recently in these last 6 months that I can genuinely say that my presence is the present, right? I am the gift. Right. And I don't mean that like I'm anything great or meaningful. You are the gift, right? It's that statement is true for everybody. But why do I say all that to you? Because here's the reality. Others are talking about stuff that you talk about. Not in the same way. They don't use the same words. It's not accessible in the same way as it is for other people, right? And there is a certain level of frequency and vibration that you and only you will be able to connect with. And so my question for you is you're like, I could get on big stages. I could do all these things. Do you want to? And where and how does that align with your overall mission of impact?
The answer is yes. I think where I get stuck is I have my business, which I love. And I mean, I truly am so good at it and I love it. And then I have this passion project of how do I build a place where entrepreneurs get to go have fun so that they can get out of their head and like really get back to who they are? And so I have these two parallel passions that I want to converge. And it's kind of like my dad does have a funny quote, and he says, you can't ride two horses with one ass. And so I think
that's good.
I'm trying to figure out how
you can hook them both up to a carriage, though.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that analogy. All right. I'm building my carriage now. So yeah, I think that that's where I want to figure out, do I want to continue to be known as the Biz Doctor and be on stages as her? Or do I want to be this even bigger, more impactful entrepreneur who's started Goldie's Guild and impacted millions? Or is there a way to have both personalities work simultaneously from stage? And I think that I'm stuck in the how hellhole, and I just need to come back to what do I want and why, and then just go do it.
I also don't think it's an either or by any stretch. But even using the quote that you just did from your dad, what does that suggest? Now, I know the nature of what he's suggesting in that example, right? It's like so I don't believe in a plan B, because I can't be fully committed to plan A if I've got my foot still out the door somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Like, and the whole idea of truly like focusing and mastering in one area is how you get, unique expertise. It's how you can leverage and scale stuff. And so I understand all that. However, I also grew up in a house where there was like one right way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so why do I say that? Because as you say, it's like, well, my dad did have this great quote. You can't ride two horses with the same ass. It's like, okay, well, what could you do with two horses? I'm having to learn how to ask those. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like for me, just because of how ingrained I was. And again, it's not right or wrong. I love and adore my parents. It's right. The way they operate the way they do because of all the reasons that they do. I understand them. I see them. But at the same time, I had to start challenging my perspective around what is possible.
Yeah.
And I think for you, it's not a matter of if you can combine the power of two horses. It's how. And so that's what I just would reflect back to you, my friend, is like, if there's somebody who can figure it out, it's going to be you. And how do I know that? Because you're a self-identified master problem solver.
This is true. Yes. Yes. I will be like, I'm vectoring the problem. I've actually said that to clients.
Right? And so the only reason I flip that back to you is because I know you do this for people all day long, right? You have conversations, you see things very clearly, you understand how to shift the perspective, but it's really fucking hard to do for ourselves sometimes.
Yes, it is.
And so here's what I would challenge you on. You already are both. It's not about how or how do I become both. You already are both. Just continue to live into that future.
Thank you. That is a good perspective shift. Yeah.
I'm happy you received it. Thank you. That was good.
Thank you. Yeah.
What does it mean for you to be a master problem solver?
Oh.
You're like hard shift. Yep, it is.
Hard shift. What does it mean? I would say that let me explain how my brain works, and maybe this will answer the question. If we go way back to who I was in my former life in the medical field, I worked in pediatric neurology and epilepsy research, was going to be a doctor. I am very good at taking symptoms and many things that seem very unrelated and going, let's tug on this thread. Let's see where this goes. Yep. Oh, actually, this is the thing. And so for me, as a master problem solver, I'm equal parts good at asking the questions that are going to get me to the root as I am sweeping away the stuff that's distracting and looks like the red herrings.
Yeah.
And then once we know what it is, saying, okay, here's the 3 ways we can solve this. Which one do you want to do? Because in my early years, so I've been doing this for 12 years. In my early years, I used to think that entrepreneurs just wanted to be told what to do. And they do, but they don't want someone telling them what to do. Like they want to know what to do, but they don't want to be told what to do.
Right.
And so...
But by the way, who does want to be told what to do?
Right?
I hate it.
I hate it too. But sometimes I'm like, just tell me what to do. Like, I just don't want to think.
Well, sometimes,
like,
sometimes it would be
dinner?
nice to just have decisions made for you and
right?
just like, oh,
exactly.
right. Like, yeah, I get
cool.
you.
Yeah. So sometimes I'm like, can my brain go on vacation? Anyway. So when I made this shift of now, here are the 3 ways I think we could do this. Which one do you want to do? Which one are you committed to doing? Which one are you going to own and make sure that it actually happens? Everything changed. And the other part of that is most often from that root cause and the 3 options. Sometimes I have the ideas, but most of the time I'll ask them questions and then they think of the ideas. So I would say as a master problem solver, it's equal parts getting rid of the red herrings to actually find the right thing. And then I think we all have so much wisdom within us. We just need somebody to pull it out.
I completely agree.
So a lot of times the problem solving is me, because I work in many different industries, and I'm speaking of like business owner, knows their business best. I'm coming in from the outside. I have an objective third party, non-biased idea, which is great, but your business. And so I want you to think of it differently so that we can solve it together.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that your and my brains probably work very similarly. I think that really, if I'm honest, and I think it's the same thing for you, I can see it just in the way you talk and how you respond on certain things. I mean, we really rely heavily on pattern recognition, right? And pattern recognition allows us to see things faster and clear through the noise. But what you're also doing is you're kind of a puzzle solver, right? I mean, truly for me, it's like I believe that that's kind of what you are as well. Why do I say it as a puzzle? Because most of the time when presented with very little information and asking the right questions, I can see like 99% of the picture that the puzzle is supposed to show me. But I don't know where the missing piece is, right? And so it's like I can sense it, I can feel it, I can get myself closer to it with pattern recognition and understanding some ways that I can do that. But really, to see the whole picture, we need our client to recognize, like, hey, based on this question, I need to give you this puzzle piece so you can complete my picture.
Yeah.
Right. And as a guide, that's kind of how we operate, right? We aren't the ones telling them what to do or that we're right. And I don't give 2 shits if I am right. I care about getting it right for them. Right. Like so I even say that, and I believe this is the case for you. It's like, hey, I might see something here. If it doesn't land, tell me. Like, I have nothing to prove. But I'm seeing something and I think we need to pull on this thread. Right. So I love how you described that. When did you realize your ability to be a master problem solver?
I probably didn't see it until about 6 years in.
Okay.
Because I know this is really interesting. So the way that I became a business consultant is actually when I left the medical field, because the long and the short story is we had a little baby come on to the epilepsy monitoring unit that we treated. And then the insurance company came back and said, we're not going to pay for this continued treatment. And I was like, I had this moment of holy crap. And I basically said to myself, okay, well, you're kind of a rebel. So you're either going to go to jail for insurance fraud or probably get fired if you continue down this road to be a doctor.
Yes.
So I did this, one of the scariest things. I left a field that I'd been in for, at that point, almost 10 years. So I was having this existential crisis of who is Lauren Goldstein outside of the medical field.
Okay.
And I was talking to my mentor, basically crying into my grits, feeling like I had wasted so much time. I felt like a cork in an ocean. He's like, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think you should be a consultant. And I thought he was insane. Because I mean, he's a multi-millionaire, many serial entrepreneur. And I said, Gene, like, I have no business experience. My experience is tiny humans, like very different. And he goes, yes, but you're missing the point. The most valuable thing for entrepreneurs is having that unbiased third party come in and show them what they can't see.
Bingo.
And you are really good at diagnosing because you see things other people don't see, because most tiny humans are not good at communicating.
Bingo.
Great. Also, sometimes business owners act like toddlers. So it was good synergy.
Many adults act like toddlers. Yeah.
Right?
It's not even just entrepreneurs.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, I think you're nuts, but I trust you. I'm just going to, I'm going to give this a go. And for the record, this was 12 years ago when it was not easy to start an online business. Yeah. Like we had to wire transfer things. Like people these days have it so easy. Anyway, so 6 years in, I'm like doing great work. I'm more in the trenches than I am now. And I just remember a client looking at me, actually the client that gave me the nickname, the Biz Doctor. And he goes, like sits back in his chair and he goes, that was brutal. So we went through a diagnostic deep dive and I'm like, tell me what's going on. He goes, I feel like you just stuck my business in an MRI machine and we're like, there's the cancer. And he's like, that was brutal. But you're kind of like the Biz Doctor because at least now we know what we're doing wrong. And he's like, I never would have seen that. Like we've been chasing this and playing whack-a-mole for months and months and months. And we were going down the wrong rabbit trails. And so that was the moment that it clicked for me that, you know, I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed in that room or smartest person, but for what they need, I'm the perfect person to show them their blind spots because you cannot read the label when you're in the bottle.
No, you can't. And that's what we were saying is it's like that. Even when I was talking to you just a minute ago about all that stuff, it's like, man, I know your ability to do this for others. Even those stories are beautiful. And I love that you're owning the Biz Doctor title because it's a beautiful thing. And I do think often, most of the time, it's just that people can't see what the real problem is. Right. And once they see it, they know how to fix it or at least open to figuring out how. And you just help them walk down that path. Now, we've been having some fun together today. I love the way that you're communicating and answering. And I'm going to ask for a little bit of permission. And if you say no, by the way, it's not going to derail me at all. Like I'll just shift and it's okay. But I want to ask a little bit of permission to kind of poke a little bit of fun at you on something that is not meant to be judgy. It's not meant to make you feel bad. But I genuinely laughed out loud, and I had to make sure that if you're open to it. So, are you open to me? You open to me joking with you a little bit?
Why not? Yes, let's have it.
Okay. So I don't like rely on our intake forms because I rely on the who's in front of me and what's happening. But something that is on our intake form, and I loved your answer to it. It's literally list interesting factors about yourself, and the interesting factor about you is that you said, I'm not sure what a factor is. Now, I just wanted to give you a little gift of a definition here. A factor, defined, it's a circumstance, factor, influence that contributes to a result or an outcome. So it's literally just interesting factoids, interesting, right? And so point is, I loved that because it just said so much too about your I mean, I do want to be correct. I don't want to give an answer that doesn't make sense. I don't know what this is. You just owned your truth. I don't know what a factor is, even though I was
probably could have Googled it.
Which is fine. And again, that wasn't my point here. But what did you just do by doing that? You alleviated any pressure and resistance within you. You didn't try to be somebody that you're not. You owned your truth in the moment. And look, it doesn't really matter if you know what a fucking factor is or not. Again, why I'm poking fun at you is not about you didn't know what the word was. It was just the whole dynamic of it made me laugh because I was like, that is an interesting factor for a really intelligent woman that is clearly a biz doctor for others.
Yeah, so, I was like, maybe they misspelled it. Maybe it's facts. And then I was like, because I think we were down to the wire and I needed to get it to you. And I was totally like, I don't have time to look this up.
By the way, it's totally fine. And I don't even mind. But so here's and I'm just going to say this. And there are others who've done this. And we're even changing our process as a result of it. I love having an answer like that over what has happened in other forms, which is, oh yeah, we want a bio. Somebody will insert the link and then I've got to go or our team has to go find I'm like, just copy and paste your bio in for me, please. Right. Or we'll ask a question and it's like, describe yourself. And they give a one-word answer that's just basic. And you're like, what? Really? So I don't mean to rip on anyone else. I actually just appreciated the transparency. You attempted to answer the question as honestly as you could, which is just, I don't know what a factor is. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So, I would love it if you could give us a little bit more insight into what do you believe is your unique value proposition outside of being a good problem solver and a diagnostic person? Because you also create processes and systems, and you've been able to grow an effective business and consult with many Fortune 500 companies, right? What's the unique value proposition about you and about your organization and the process that you run people through to really be able to help them get more freedom, impact, success, and have overall better connected, happier teams?
So for me, it comes down to understanding the 3 pounds between your ears. Because I can give you the best darn team, the best darn strategies, tune up your operations, work with you to make the plan perfect. But if I don't actually get to what it is within you as a business owner that's stopping you from letting go and stepping out of that operator into that owner, into that bigger leader, and like having the team that's going to support you and the operations to back them up, it's going to be like trying to shove a rock up a hill. And so my degree in cognitive neuroscience, I'm also a board certified NLP practitioner, really helps me recognize when the words that you're telling me and what's actually happening are not the same. And I'll give you a great example. I was sitting in a quarterly planning meeting with one of my fractional businesses. Not a fractional business, a business that I'm a fractional COO for.
Got it. Okay.
And we were going through scorecards, which is one of the pillars of my work, is because, you know, in my business, we have the 7 C's of a high performing team and a high performing business. I'm not going to go into all 7 of them, but the number 1 C is clarity.
Oh, so important.
So important. It's clarity on roles, clarity on vision, accountabilities, communication, all the things. So we're doing the scorecard because it gives supreme clarity to someone's role. It talks about their mission, how they fit in the company, the problem that they solve, the accountabilities they have, who they have to be in their DNA to be successful in this role, all the things. It's like advanced avionics for an airplane to make sure you get to your destination on time. And we're doing this, and we're doing the CEOs. And I'm watching him. So all of us on the exec team are there, and I'm watching him. And he goes from being like back in his chair to then he's up in his chair, and he's crossing his arms, and he's back in his chair. And then all of a sudden he gets up and goes to the front of the room to get closer to this spreadsheet. And so I stopped the meeting and I said, "Tell me what's happening right now."
Hey.
He goes, "I am so uncomfortable that I only have 3 things on my scorecard."
Hey.
We took him from like literally, I don't know, probably 20 plus things that he was owning. And I use air quotes because he might have been owning them, but he was failing at most of them. And he's like, what's my value with these 3 things? And it was for him not about the magnitude of those 3 things because they were big things. It was about the amount and how it would look to other people that he was doing less.
Yep.
And so this existential crisis of who am I when I'm not doing all the things in the business is probably one of the number 1 things that differentiates me. Because sure, I could come in and give you all the best things, but if I don't address that, it doesn't matter. Like any of the other stuff doesn't matter.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. It's never the strategy and tactics that keep people stuck. They're critically important for leveraging and scaling our lives and our business, but they are never the reason that people are stuck, ever. It's always about the things that we're talking about that we call the trash from people's past, that they're just not able to identify, remove, or transform. I know that we're getting short on time because you did have a hard stop, so I'm going to be respectful of that. I have many more questions I want to ask, but I think let's go ahead and bring this a little bit to a wrap. If you could let us know, just give us a little bit of an insight into what we can expect if we listen to the Biz Doctor. What are the best places for people to find you? And then I would say on the tail end of that, just wrap with any closing thoughts that you have.
Okay. So the Biz Doctor is my love letter to business owners, because friends don't let friends WebMD their business.
Really?
So what that means is you'll hear lots of fun, lots of humor, golden nuggets, and I get really real and raw about what is potentially keeping you stuck in many different areas. I also have great guests that are complimentary that will help you have a holistic business. So I will say, if you not every episode is explicit, but if you don't like creative curse words,
we say fuck all the time on this show,
okay,
so
great.
It's okay. Yeah. I think our audience will be desensitized with the amount of times I've used the word. So
okay, great. I just remember in our first few episodes, I said something like tits up, like the business went tits up. And in the Slack channel, my audio engineer is like, hey, team, is tits a bad, does this have to be explicit? And it was just really funny. So that we got the explicit rating because I said tits up in our third
amazing.
episode.
That's amazing. I love it.
And best ways to find me, of course, you can go to goldenkeypartnership.com. We've got some great resources, including the scorecard, which I mentioned. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram. As an elder millennial, I'm not on really any other platforms. I'm on Facebook, but it's not a lot. So, and then a closing thought. As an operational person, this is one of my favorite questions to ask. If you were in the business to buy a business tomorrow, would you buy your own business?
Mic drop on that question. That's a great question to ask. I love that.
Yep.
I love that.
Thank you.
Lauren, all your stuff is going to be obviously in the show notes. I just want to say thank you so much for how open you were, how willing you were to jump into your stories and your truth. And I'm looking forward to doing more with you.
Yes, me too. Thank you. This has been great and really enjoyable. Thanks for your great questions.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And for those of you who just tuned in, did Lauren flip her lid. She jumped in. She was honest. She was real. She talked about anecdotal things, not only from her own life, but many examples from even clients' lives. We recognize the same things. We see patterns. We fill in those missing places so that people can see themselves and stand into who they are more clearly than they've ever been able to before. It's possible for each and every one of you. And when you clear the interference, when you finally surrender, you open yourself to all the possibilities and wonder of life. And you might just get to benefit from the silence that follows new snow. But what does it require? You to flip open your lid and scan your can. What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.